Welcome to DFS Jags Fantasy Golf Show. I'm Tony Altieri. That is Dr. Riku Mukherjee, a man on a mission, going for three straight, back-to-back. Rick, how does it feel, man?
Feels good. It's nice to hit a couple winners in a row. Not only that, I feel like between me and you, I think since the beginning of the year, I feel like we have someone in contention in the final group, maybe the penultimate group, like every Sunday. So it feels good to have a sweat every Sunday. This past week, the only time I actually felt any sort of sweat was after Morikawa hit his approach shot on 18. Because before that, I had Neiman ticket, I had a Cam Young ticket, so I was feeling good about that. But then I had a bad feeling in my stomach that if Morikawa makes that putt on 18, that he's going to snatch it away from Neiman. But luckily, he missed the putt. Neiman went on to win the tournament wire to wire, and it was a great week.
Yeah, you mentioned it, but before we get into the Genesis, I do want to say a couple things. I want to remind everybody that's out there that's brand new, who's watching the show for the first time, make sure you subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. Make sure you like the episode. Make sure you share it on social media. I mean, it goes a long way for us, right? For what you, me, and Mike are doing. Every one of those helps a ton. You're filling people's bank accounts with your picks. So the least they can do is fill our subscribers, right? So like the show, subscribe, comment on the show. If you're tuning in live and you want to ask some questions, Rick is manning the live chat, so we will respond live out here. But we're happy to have new people on. Rick, you were getting some steam on Twitter this afternoon, so we had to call in reserves. So Mixmaster Mike is producing for us tonight, rather than me launching the maiden voyage. But let's get into it a little bit. Obviously, the Genesis, we talked about it. You mentioned some things last week. For me, going into Sunday, I had a ticket on Morikawa. I had a ticket on Hovland. I felt so well positioned having those guys sitting, at 3 and 7 going into the final day. And I felt like if there was any stumble from either Young or Neiman, that they were going to be the guys that pounced. You mentioned it. The putt on 18 for Morikawa, I feel like if he hits that putt, it drastically changes the dynamics of what happens for Neiman coming down the stretch.
Yeah, I think so. The difference between what happened at Genesis and the difference between that and what happened at Waste Management was, I think if it was just Cam Young that was leading the tournament, I think we could have seen obviously Morikawa took over Cam Young, to get a solo second, or Hovland coming back or something like that, like we had the previous week with Tagala leading, a majority of the tournament and with all these big names behind him. But I think I wasn't really scared of Neiman losing the tournament just because I know the quality of golfer he is.
Yeah.
He doesn't really fall into the same category as the Hovlands and the Morikawas and stuff like that. But I think he's right there. He's younger than those guys. He's so good. And I really did not have a fear that he was really going to blow that tournament, especially because he's won on the PGA Tour before. So um, I was if Morikawa made that putt, I would have been a little more nervous. But knowing that Neiman just needed a bogey 18, I was pretty confident he was going to win, unless Cam Young birdied 18 miraculously. But yeah, if Neiman didn't exist and we were talking about Cam Young, and I was holding a 225 to 1 ticket on Cam Young, I would not have been confident with that. I probably would have hedged out on either Morikawa or Hovland or JT or something like that. But holding that Neiman ticket, holding that Cam Young ticket, I didn't bother hedging. In fact, I put Neiman in a little bit of a parlay with some basketball games, so I hit that also. But I felt pretty confident that I didn't need to get to that point just because of how wonderfully he was hitting the ball all week, and especially after he chipped in for eagle on, I think it was 10 or 11.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like the lead that kind of Neiman had put together through 3 days. I mean, you could say through 54 holes of the tournament, he looked phenomenal. Off the tee, he wasn't as good as he has been, but ball striking wise, he was still fantastic. And really, what's killed him throughout the course of his career has been his around the green game, and he was very, very good this week at the Genesis. So, I mean, again, having Morikawa, having Hovland, I felt good, but I felt like Neiman had put together such a lead going into the final round that it was going to take something Herculean to try and catch him. But the guy to me that really nobody's talking about is the guy that you've mentioned a couple times, the guy you had a ticket on 225-1, which is Cam Young. I mean, he never stumbled the entire way. Again, he kind of was pedestrian on Sunday, but he didn't have any massive mistakes. He was always there. And if Neiman would have stumbled at all at any point in time, you felt like Young might have been able to capitalize. I mean, as it sits, Neiman closes it out, wire to wire winner. He plays great, finishes it out. And you basically have these two guys in Neiman and Young, two young guys that end up coming in first and second. You know, we always forget Morikawa was a young guy, Hovland's a young guy, but you know, based off of their pedigree, what they've done, the number of times that they won both domestically and internationally, it's you don't think of them the same way, to your point, that you do Neiman. They're in a similar age bracket. They came out similar times. And all of these guys are super, super young. And I guess the expectations are just so high for these guys because they've been winning at such an unbelievable rate so early in their careers that we kind of get guys lost in the shuffle. Cam Young's interesting. He's in the Honda Classic this week. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about him. I mean, he struck the absolute crap out of the ball at the Genesis. So I'm interested to see where his ownership and stuff shakes out. Obviously, nobody likes to play guys like off of a win, so I don't expect anybody's going to own Neiman this week. But there were a couple things I took away from the Genesis. One, the course didn't play as difficult as it had in the past. That 19 under, that's one of the lowest scoring, tournaments that they've had at Riv since they've been hosting the tournament there. Like I said, Neiman, I think he puts himself into a category of guys now, having won that tournament, kind of like Homa did last year. When you win a big tournament like that, when you win Riv, you win the Players, you win Memorial, like that kind of catapults you into that next level of guy. And now people start considering you for WGCs and majors. Do you think Neiman now is a legitimate contender in a major this year?
Maybe. I don't really like him at the majors here in America. I kind of like him at St. Andrews for the Open Championship.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you the same question. Like, what is Neiman's ceiling now? Can he win a major? I think he can. I think he's definitely good enough to win a major. But with his low piercing ball flight and everything like that, the way his game is set up, I think he will. He's gonna probably get my money at the Open Championship this year for sure in DFS. I just don't know if he's good enough or at that level yet to compete at like a U.S. Open or like the Masters or anything like that. But we'll see if he wins a major this year. I wouldn't be shocked to tell you the truth. Yeah, I think the sky's the limit for him. He has a great game. His swing is
unconventional.
Unconventional, I think is the right word. It's a little herky jerky. He goes down.
Cam Young's the same swing though. They have that same like where typical the traditional swing is to keep your head basically stationary and let your body rotate around.
Yeah,
and they move vertically up and down to generate more power.
And Cam Young also has this like pause at the top of his swing, like I haven't seen since like Hideki. It's crazy
at the top. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've been playing Cam Young all season. Like even the swing season, I was playing Cam Young. He finished second at the Sanderson Farms earlier this year. He played well at Waste Management. At Torrey and all these other tournaments. I think he has a really well put together game. He did really well on the Corn Ferry Tour last year. But before I was playing him at the 6K range, and now he's bumped up to the 8K range. And I don't know how that makes me feel about a Cam Young at an 8,500 price tag. I mean, we'll get into it later, but yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about Cam Young at that high price of a bump.
Yeah, last two things I want to mention about the Genesis before we jump in the Honda Classic. Number one, Jon Rahm. He finishes basically inside the top 10 again. For a lot of people, I think a lot of people felt it was disappointing. But you look at what he did statistically. He finished inside the top, 5 for ball striking again. Total strokes gained again. The putter was absolutely ice cold through 3 days. And then all of a sudden it gets hot on Sunday and he shoots, 6-7 under, which is insane. But it shows you how quickly a guy like that can catch fire. Do you think there's any hangover from Rahm? Or are we just going to have to deal with him being the highest price guy and continue to be like, 8-9 to 1 in every one of these tournaments kind of leading up to the majors?
I think so. I mean, he had a putt on Friday. If he missed it, he misses the cut. It was a tricky left to right putt, and he made it and gets into a top 10. I don't know how I feel about Rahm moving forward, to be completely honest with you. It's a weird situation because I've been fading him, and I feel like I've been kind of getting paid off in fading him
Yep.
because of just how high he's priced, and he's not winning tournaments. He hasn't won a tournament since the U.S. Open. He's just in contention every week. But then on top of that, I've been seeing he's like in the optimal lineup like every week
Every single
almost.
week.
Yeah, because of how many birdies he makes and stuff like that. So I kind of have a love hate relationship with Rom. I'm getting a little sick and tired of the profanity that he's been using, like, left and right. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but, like, the
I
dude
just think he's
curses.
frustrated. I
I
really do. I
I
think
no,
he's frustrated.
yeah, I get that, and he has this quote, unquote, "Spanish temper" or whatever the situation is, but, um, he needs to chill with that. He literally, like, every time they're having to use the dump button on him on live coverage, like, he's dropping an F-bomb, like, every time he hits a bad shot. That's kind of like rubbing me like the wrong way on him a little bit. I just wish he was a little bit more composed on the golf course. And I feel like if he was a little bit more composed on the golf course, it would maybe equate to more victories. I'm not really sure, but yeah, Rom is what it is. He is what he is. Yeah, I don't really have any other takes from this tournament. It was a fun tournament to watch.
Oh, it was great. Rib's
Yeah,
always
it
fantastic.
was great. Did you what did you think of we can't finish this conversation without talking about Tiger a little bit. Like what did you think about his comments from Saturday? I know Jim Nance was like needling him left and right about when he's going to come back and he wouldn't really give him a straight answer. What are your thoughts on that and when do you think he's going to come back?
So I think if he does come back, he comes back for the British Open. I don't. He may do one or two tune-ups before then to get ready, but my expectation is that he will play in the British Open. He's not going to come back for the Masters. I just think it's too soon. There's not enough time. I mean, it was mentioned multiple times in the media, but this is basically the 1 year anniversary of his accident.
Yeah.
From a major accident where he almost lost his leg. We're 12 months away from that, and the guy looks like a physical specimen. I mean, at least from all appearances, the dude he's put on 15, 20 pounds of muscle. He looks
Yeah.
fantastic. We saw him play in the PNC with his kid, and he definitely looked rusty, but he didn't look terrible. And I think there was enough there for me to say, okay, if he gets a couple competitive rounds in, even if he plays an event and misses the cut before the British Open, I fully expect him to come back. And that's barring any setbacks, right? Like if he goes out and he injures himself in PT or, he decides to go out and play around and his leg's just not responding the way that he needs to, anything can happen. But I would say, one, to answer your question, I was very pleased with the way that he conducted himself and kind of was the MC and the host for the event.
Mhm.
And I think he handled the question from Nance well. I mean, Nance was basically a fanboy like we all are, trying to figure out when is our favorite player coming back. I'm not going to leave without asking the question over and over again. So while a lot of people were, throwing shade at Jim Nance, I was glad he was asking the
I
question
mean,
that was.
it's understandable.
Yeah.
We all want to know, and he didn't. I don't think it's gonna happen, but he didn't completely shut the door on playing at
No, no.
Augusta.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the Open's probably the right time for him to come back if he does come back this year at all. I would not
Yeah.
be shocked if he didn't play it this year at all and just comes back full gear next season. But I was thinking about other spots that maybe he could come back. One spot that I don't let me get your take on it is one spot that I was thinking about is maybe he could potentially come back for the match play. Just because it's not like a stroke play, like full hands on deck, like competitive, like stroke play event, but
Mhm.
more of like a one-on-one, like your only opponent that you got to think about that day is like right next to you that you're playing against. You know what I mean? Like a situation like that, I feel like Tiger could stare down a couple guys and still beat them in a match play event. I don't know. I was just thinking about it.
Yeah, the only thing with where the match play is typically played down in Texas is it's a big, long, gnarly
Yeah,
course.
that's true.
So it's a tough walk. It's the same argument that you make about Augusta, right? Like it's a great course fit for
Mm.
him, the event's right for him, but I mean, dude, it's a brutal walk.
Just
Anybody
just let
that's
him
ever
ride a
been
cart, man. I don't care. Seriously, just let him ride a cart.
Yeah, that's one of those things in golf, the whole you have to walk the entire thing. Remember when there was, I can't remember the kid's name, Casey, whatever, the kid that had one
Casey
leg,
Martin, yeah.
Casey Martin. It was like, dude, are you serious? Like, is it that big of a deal? The guy has one leg. You should be able to ride in a cart.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where elitists and kind of golf tradition fall in there. But I think to your point, I think if he got in I think he was able to get in 4 rounds, and it could be split into 2 separate events where he basically misses the cut. But if he gets 4 rounds before the British Open, I think he's live. That course is set up perfectly for him. It's a place that he's won before, and I think it mitigates all of the things that he doesn't do very well and that have deteriorated over time for Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
And it really accentuates all the things he still does very, very well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Before we jump into the Honda, do you have any thoughts about the whole Saudi league or anything like that? I mean,
so for me, there's not as much emotion around what I would call the blood money aspect of Saudi. Like, dude, every country, every league has its skeletons in the closet and does things that, are terrible. So, it's easy to point fingers at Saudi because obviously that country, that region, that reigning family, they don't have the best, history. At the same point in time, for me, I think competition is good. But I do think that league, just like we see when leagues try to pop up in the spring and compete against the NFL and get talent, it's not the same product. You can do whatever you want to do and build it as however you want, but until you're able to get the commitments from some top level guys, I mean, guys like Phil and Poulter and Lee Westwood, like that's like tier 4 guy from like 3 years ago. Like I'm not gonna, that's not gonna draw me away from the PGA. And the fact that most of the major guys at the elite level have come out and basically given their allegiance to the PGA. I don't see the league catching much steam. I would have watched it if it would have been there. It's the same way I follow the DP Tour and follow Korn Ferry. But at this point in time, I think it's probably a dead deal unless there was some kind of game-changing announcement where they could hang their hat on, a handful of players that are, elite level guys. But to this point, I don't think anybody's really stepped up and committed to playing in that league.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of happy. It's going. It seems like it's going into the toilet. I'm just from a kind of like RD gen kind of betting standpoint. I mean,
Yeah.
When there's a field of like 20, 30 guys, like we don't like that. Like we don't like betting on the Hero World Challenge or
from a betting perspective,
yeah, like we're gonna be getting like Phil Mickelson at like 15-1 odds. Like we don't want to bet we don't want to bet those tournaments. So I mean, just from a fan standpoint, it would have been fun to watch. But I mean, I love the PGA Tour as a product. They look like they're doing at least making some improvements for us as far as like coverage goes. I thought the coverage this past weekend was pretty good. So I'm happy to see those changes that they're making. Maybe in the future we can start getting strokes gain data everywhere at all courses and even on the European Tour or something like that. So I hope they start these changes, and I also hope they listen to Phil Mickelson a little bit. I know he put out an apology on social media today about his comments and everything like that. But I also hope that like what he said like invokes a little bit of change, and they give some more rights to the players to like their own shots and their own NFTs and stuff like that. I get that part of it. These players only have a limited amount of time to make a certain amount of money, so they should be able to make as much money as they can. So I definitely agree with that part of it, but I like the PGA Tour product as a whole, especially from a gambling aspect, a DFS aspect. So I'm happy to see that the Saudi league's kind of going down the drain.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll say will be the last kind of comment I give about it is if you think about what happened with the XFL and the NFL, a lot of the things that the XFL experimented with became basically part of the game that we have today, right? The camera that's basically in the huddle, having guys mic'd up, having live helmets and communication with coaches, like all of those things that the XFL was able to bring to the game, which were breaking from tradition, right? The NFL saw that, hey, there's value in this. People like to see this. People want this level of access. And so that's the only thing that I would say. And to your point, I think hopefully at least rumoring that a league would compete and pay more money and do some of these things that are a little more outside of the box versus what the PGA has done traditionally. Hopefully that wakes them up to the fact that they need to improve the fan experience through the app, on TV, through social media. They need to get better. And hopefully they learn from that and they do that. And we end up, to your point, with a better product all the way around.
Yep, totally agree. All right, enough talking about all that last week. It's all in the past. Let's talk about the Honda.
The Honda. So, okay, obviously one of the most difficult tournaments of the year. It's a full field event. We've got shot tracker for all 4 days in arguably one of the most difficult tour stops outside of the majors and the WGCs. This course is headlined, of course, by the Bear Trap 15, 16, 17, consistently plays over par every year. Not to be outdone, though, holes 5, 6, and 7 also represent one of the toughest stretches on tour. Hole 6 plays at a 30% bogey rate. It's the most difficult hole on the course. You've got water in play on 15 out of 18 holes. There's more landmines here than a Cambodian rice paddy. Shout out Cambodia, beautiful country, beautiful people. But I mean, by tour standards, the field's soft this year, and part of that is because of where the scheduling fell. It's kind of top heavy. You've got Louis, Berger, Sungjae. So why don't we jump right into it? Let's jump into the 10K range. There's a number of guys here above $10,000. When we look at the list, Sungjae, obviously, you could say he's the new Prince of Palm Beach. His track record in Florida, he's won here. Louis, again, he's a local. Berger, he's a local. Brooks, he's a local. And of course, the guy who just won last week, Joaquin Niemann. Who do you like at the top of the board?
I've been a little torn about the top of the board from a DFS standpoint because I do like Sungjae at the very top. Obviously, with his history at this course, he's won this tournament 2 years ago. He finished 8th here last year. I do like him, but he is coming in the overwhelming chalk in this range. Everyone seems to be gravitating towards him. So I think I'm going to have to fade him in this situation. I'm going to pivot to Louis. I really like Louis on tough tracks, major-esque type courses. And the other guy I like in this range and major-esque type courses, we got to talk about it, especially because he's going to be sleeping in his own bed this week, is Brooks. I think that a lot of people give him this notion of not being motivated for PGA Tour events and stuff like that, like regular events that are not majors. But I think he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder right now. I think he's out to prove some of these naysayers wrong this year, that he's here to, give it his all for the, 18 to 20 times that he tees it up this year. So I definitely like Louis. I definitely like Brooks. I think I'm going to have to fade Sungjae, and I think I'm out on Berger too, just because I'm a little worried about the injury situation. And he's still, like, even with the injury situation, he's still coming in a little chalky. So I think my plays up here are Brooks and Louis, and then I'm not really sure what to do with Niemann just because he's coming off that win. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't argue with some of the logic that you've made. The only thing that I would throw out, the same way we talked about Rom, right? Not necessarily delivering on being the highest price guy and winning tournaments, but ultimately being in the best possible group each and every week. I feel similarly about Sungjae. I don't think that he's going to win the tournament this week, which is why I didn't bet him at whatever he is, 12, 14, 16 to 1. But I'm worried that he will score and he will compete and he will play very, very well at this tournament because he has. He plays well on Bermuda. His track record at the Honda is fantastic. And so it's difficult for me to fade him. To your point, where it gets scary is to be chalky. But at least in my opinion, if I'm going to be chalky anywhere, I'm going to be chalky at the top of the board because it has the the highest possible floor, right? I would find it very difficult to imagine a scenario where Sungjae misses the cut this week, right? So his miscut equity's through the roof, his win equity's through the roof. And so I guess if I'm going to be chalky, this may be the spot where I eat the chalk.
I agree with that, except this is the one tournament that I feel like chalk just bombs. Like whenever there's a chalk,
you're absolutely right.
There's so much water. I think there's water on like 15 or 16 holes, and like Sungjae could be cruising along Thursday, and then like all of a sudden on the back nine on Friday, he could have like 2 or 3 balls in the water, and there he goes. He misses the cut. Like that could happen not just to Sungjae, but like it could literally happen to anyone that we talk about. So this is one of those weeks where I'm like really fade the chalk kind of like feelings in my gut. And if we're going to talk about that at the top of the range, we got to talk about Niemann because he's coming in like single digit ownership. No one's playing Niemann, especially after those comments he made about how tired he was from, sleeping on the lead every night last week. So what are your thoughts on Niemann? Because if we take away his win from last week, like this course suits Niemann perfectly, especially if it gets windy.
Yeah, the only thing that I worry about a little with Neiman, and I mentioned it when we were talking about the Genesis, is he was a little wayward off the tee, right? And so off the tee game this week, at least at Riv, we saw it with Hovland. They were going up separate fairways to have better shots on the greens. And here it's like if you don't put the ball in the fairway, you're wet and you're dropping two and hitting three. So that's the difficult part here. To your point, I think we could end up with some guys that are cruising along playing very, very well, and then all of a sudden they step on a landmine. And so I worry about Neiman with his consistency off the tee. Again, he is a very good ball striker, and if he's able to bring the level of game that he had last week, it's been proven he's almost impossible to beat. But with all that being said, your comments about sleeping on the lead and being tired and all of those things, it's difficult to play him. I think if it was a scenario where I was playing, if I was playing 50 lineups, I might go 5 to 7% Neiman just to change up at the top of the board. But I won't be playing that many lineups, so I don't think I'm going to be able to play Neiman this week. Again, it could bite me in the ass because you could have the same guy that showed up at Riv and dominated, show up here and do the same thing. I went back and looked last year at this tournament. He was the odds-on chalk going into this tournament last year. I think he was like 40, 50 to 1, and everybody was all over him last year, kind of like they were for Riv this year. So it's interesting now that he's coming off of a win and he's 18 to 1 and nobody wants to bet him and nobody wants to play him in DFS, how much the narrative has changed in 12 months.
Yep. I think last year he basically chipped his way out of this tournament because he was terrible around the green. I think he's gotten a little better at chipping and around the green game. A little bit more credit than we should give him there. So
Yeah.
I don't mind if you want to play game theory and play Neiman this week. I just don't expect a good result from him this week.
Yeah, I don't think that it can get there, especially with the options at the top of the board. There's other levels here when we get down to the 9 and 8 and 7Ks where I think, your options in terms of where you can pivot become very, very limited. But at the top of the board, I think any one of these guys are fine plays. To your point, the only guy that scares me more than Neiman is probably Berger.
Mm-hmm.
But we're 3-4 weeks away from that, and I feel like he's got a little bit of time. So perhaps I don't know. Perhaps he puts it together. I don't know.
If Berger is fully healthy, I think he's probably the best player in this field.
For this course, absolutely.
Yeah, like I think like he would probably be priced at the top of the board or something like that. So you just got to kind of take that with a grain of salt and just kind of make your decision on what you want to do with Berger. If you feel like, I mean, we don't get injury reports in golf. I wish we did, but like if you feel like he's healthy and he's ready to play, go ahead, fire him up. But if you're scared like I am, fade him. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Berger's track record here at the Honda. I mean, he finished 4th here last year. He gained everywhere but around the greens. Or I should say that was in 2020, and in 2019, he gained everywhere but on approach. So it's his track record is not fantastic. It's pretty good, but he does have a couple of miscuts sprinkled in there with a couple of top 5 finishes. So the fact that he does have the back injury looming, I think a lot of people obviously are going to avoid him this week. But again, if you think that he's healthy and there's enough time away from it, I totally see the game theory play because you are getting, to your point, arguably the best guy in the field.
Yep, I totally agree.
So if we drop down into the 9Ks, it's headlined by a couple Euros and a few names that we would expect to see here. Horschel's a guy that's won on the European Tour as well, too. And then a handful of guys that we're used to seeing like in the 7s and 6Ks with Noren, Wolf, Mitchell, and Jones. Obviously, Wolf's probably the biggest question mark. Statistically, form, everything, he's absolute garbage. But when you talk about upside, I think a lot of people are classifying him with the level of upside that a Hovland or a Morikawa has. With that being said, I think a lot of people are going to end up avoiding him. Mitchell's a guy that's won here. Jones is a guy that's won here. Noren has a good track record. Fleetwood arguably has the best track record of anybody who hasn't won this tournament. So, there's a number of options depending on how you want to go. And maybe this is where people get a little bit different in terms of lineup build. Where do you see things kind of lining out in the 9Ks?
From an ownership perspective, it looks like it's all Billy Ho and Keith Mitchell that are the overwhelming chalks, and then everyone else is low ownership or a pivot kind of play. So I never really liked playing Billy Ho anyway, so I'm out on Billy Ho this week just because of the high ownership. I like Keith Mitchell this week; he's been playing great golf. I may eat the chalk with Keith Mitchell this week, but my favorite play in this range is probably going to be Alex Noren. He's been playing really good golf recently, with he had a sixth place finish a couple weeks ago. He's been making cuts and stuff like that, and I like Alex Noren at tough golf courses. So in a situation where he has to grind it out, keep the ball in play, make good approach shots, putt the ball well. I like Alex Noren in the situation, and the other guy I like in this range is Shane Lowry. This is his first start in the United States this year. So Shane Lowry, of course, from last year, we know that he plays well in hard golf courses. Also, he played really well at all the majors last year. So my plays here in this range are Alex Noren and Shane Lowry. I get the love for Tommy. He's had a third and a fourth place finish here. I love Tommy Fleetwood as a golfer, but Tommy Fleetwood 9,900. I don't know about you, but I just I can't pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, you know what it comes down to for me is where I end up going at the top of the board. I think a lot of people, the builds are going to be a guy from above 10K and then a guy from this 9K range. And I think if I'm going to go with a guy like Sung Jae and go super chalky above 10K, that I can't go with a guy like Tommy Fleetwood. I just can't do it. I can't pair those two guys together. So what I'll end up doing is pivoting to one of these guys. And I may, as crazy as it sounds, I may end up even going to a guy like Wolf to try and get a little bit of leverage on the field. I like Lowry, but I feel like in this lineup, he's a bit of a forgotten man. The other guy that I'm interested to see because he struck the ball so well last week at the Genesis is Matt Jones. He finished inside the top 10 for ball striking last week at the Genesis, which is atypical for him for what we consider his skill set. Last year he absolutely ran away with this tournament. So it'll be interesting. And then Noren is the other guy. Like you, I think a lot of people are kind of scratching their heads wondering what to do with Alex Noren. If you look at his course history here, the last 4 times he's played the event over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, his course history is he's got a third, he's got a 48th, but he also has 2 missed cuts sprinkled in there. So you wonder which version of him is going to show up. To your point, he has been playing phenomenally as of late. He's basically been gaining everywhere but off the tee over the last, 10 to 20 rounds. So I think in terms of his trajectory, he's moving in the right direction. And we're starting to see that Alex Noren that we had, 5, 6, 7 years ago when he was one of the best iron players in the world. His approach has been good. And like I said, the only thing that concerns me is his off the tee has been the one place where he has been fairly pedestrian. And like we talked about at this place, if you're wayward off the tee, you're done. You're not in bad position. Like you're dropping 2 and hitting 3.
Yeah. We can say that for any golfer in this field, to be completely honest with you.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, and you hit it on the head, right? It's like, because the level of you can't make mistakes here, and everybody's going to make mistakes. It just depends on when they happen. And you have a scenario where in a tournament like this, if you can plod along and finish, through the first 3 days, 1, 2 under, you're going to be in the mix on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it's like guys who don't make big mistakes, guys who aren't going to throw the ball in the water 2 or 3 times. Those are the guys you want to circle, but it can happen to anyone. We saw it happen to Tommy Fleetwood the year that he lost to Sung Jae M. He's got an approach on 18 and he sticks it in the water, and that's it. He's done.
Yeah. You kind of sold me a little bit on Matt Jones. He's been playing pretty well. I mean, he finished didn't he finish in the top 5 at Tournament of Champions? Didn't he almost win that event a few weeks ago?
He's played really, really well. Let's pull him up here. I've got Fantasy National Open, but let's let's pull up Matt Jones. Matt Jones. Let's take a look here. So
he played so well here last year. I understand it's really hard to defend, but I feel like this is a good spot for him, especially at low ownership.
Yeah, so the Tournament of Champions, you're right. He finished third at the Tournament of Champions. He missed the cut at the Sony, missed the cut at the Farmers, missed the cut at Pebble Beach, finished T58 at Phoenix, and then finished inside the top 15 at Genesis. So, it's interesting. He's just kind of all over the board. The one thing that I would say is that if you look at how he's done over the last few rounds, and then historically, he typically gains off the tee, typically gains on around the greens. His tee to green is usually pretty good. Where he loses strokes, even though his tee to green is good, is on approach. That's typically where he goes sideways.
Yeah. I like it. I think this is a good spot for him. I mean, especially coming in at low ownership. He plays well in windy conditions. I haven't really checked the weather yet this week, so keep an eye out on my Twitter. If there's something like any sort of like wave advantage, we'll tweet it out as far as like weather goes this week. But yeah, I think I'm gonna buy into Matt Jones a little bit this week. So I definitely like Lowry, Jones, and Norin in that range. And I think you said you liked Wolf, and who else? The other person you said you liked? Oh, you like Norin also.
Yeah, I mean, I like Norin, and I think it just depends on what I do at the top of the board. If I end up going like with Berger at the top of the board, I'd love to pair him with Fleetwood. But if I end up going with Sungjae at the top of the board, I'm probably going to have to mix in Matt Jones and Wolf, and maybe even Shane Lowry just to gain a little bit of leverage in terms of ownership.
Yeah. Okay.
So, dropping down into the 8Ks, we've got our boy at the top of the $8,000 mark. He seems to be the guy, much like Neiman last week, because it felt like a bit of a community win with Neiman at the Genesis. But Mito, everybody's on Mito this week. All the stars are aligning. I just hope it's not like Mav McNeely at Pebble Beach here a few weeks ago.
I love Mito. He was in my main lineup last week. I'm going to play him in DFS again this week. This is the first time I think in forever that I can think of that I actually didn't bet Mito. I still have a day and a half to put in a wager on him if I wanted to, but
he's on my card. Him and Munoz are like FOMO for me.
Yeah, he's FOMO for me too, but I think he's turning into, for me, he's turning into more of a better DFS play just because I just think he makes a lot of birdies and grinds it out and stuff like that. So I don't know if he has the upside to win yet. So I'm laying. I couldn't really squeeze him onto my card yet this week, so probably not going to bet him. But I do like him in DFS. The other guys in this range. I mean, ownership wise, it looks like Mito and Aaron Wise are coming in the chalky guys. So everyone else looks like it's pretty much a pivot.
Let me just say this: Aaron Wise. How the hell is Aaron Wise so chalky every week? Everyone was on him for waste management. I'm like, why? He's fool's gold. You need to walk away from this. People told me I was crazy. Played terrible. And then the next week, again, he was chalk. And here we are 3 weeks in a row. Aaron Wise, chalky as all hell.
I don't know. He finished what here? He finished 13th here last year, 35th the year before. He has good course history here, but yeah, he does have a couple miscuts recently. I think we are a little bit what's the word that I'm looking? I think we're a little fool's gold, like you said, where he plays on the West Coast. He says he doesn't like putting on POA greens. He's more comfortable on Bermuda greens. So in a situation like this where he's coming back to Bermuda and he's improved his putting from last year with his little broom putter, I think this is a good spot to get on him. So I definitely like Aaron Wise in this range. And the other guy I like is Brian Harmon. This is a course where, like I've been saying it a bunch of times on the show, a grinded out kind of course, a course where a par is a good score. And we saw Brian Harmon last year, this time of the year, he was playing wonderful. He finished, I think, second at the Players. I think he had other high finishes in the Florida swing. So I definitely know that he likes the Bermuda greens. He likes the grinded out kind of course. He likes the courses where it's a little windy. So I think my plays from this range are Mito, Harmon, and Wise. I don't really have a feeling for anyone else in this range other than Patrick Reed. And my feeling for Patrick Reed is that I'm just not even going to remotely come close to touching him.
Yeah, Reed feels a lot like Wolf. You just
how is he 80? What is he?
$8,800.
How is he $8,800? Man,
Well,
he was so bad last week.
To me, it has to do with the pedigree. It's the same reason why Wolf is in the 9,000s. It's just if Reed or Wolf show up and play to their ceiling, you're getting a world-class guy, right? The long-term version of Patrick Reed is a much better player than Mac Hughes, Johnny Vegas.
I agree.
And so I think that's why we're seeing that there. For me, it's the same as you on Reed. I jumped back in on Reed last week thinking, hey, I'm going to buy the dip, and it was terrible. So I just can't do it 2 weeks in a row. With all that being said, he'll probably jump up and win because that's what Patrick Reed does. Plays like absolute garbage, and then when everybody's ready to write him off, he shows up and he wins tournaments. If he does, I'll stand up and clap and say, way to go, Patrick Reed. I'm out on him like you. The guys for me in this range, you know me, I'm a Woodland fanatic. I love Woodland at club down short courses, especially Bermuda. I love him here in this spot. The other guy that I'm kind of circling around, other than Mito's going to be, he's a bet for me as a DFS play. I think everything's starting to line up for him. The other guy for me in this area that I'm looking at is Seabez. He's been playing fairly well throughout the stretch on the PGA Tour in the early part of the season. But you think about his long-term skill set, like where he does well and the things that he doesn't do. He doesn't hit the ball very far, but he's pretty accurate. He's good around the greens, and he gets nuclear hot with the putter from time to time. And we just haven't seen that spike yet. I think being back on Bermuda, which is one of his better putting surfaces, I like Seabez here probably more than I've liked him at any other course throughout the course of the year.
I don't know if it's because I never ever get to Seabez, but like, is it me or just like, do we never see him on TV? I never see his name on
He's
the
not in
leader.
contention. The last time I saw him on TV was, I think, at the Olympics, right? Because I think he might have been in like the playoff with like 8 guys for the bronze medal, but
I never see his name on the leaderboard. I don't get the fascination with him that much. Like, I get that he's a great putter or whatever, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you guys can all play him. I just never ever click on his name just because he's just not in my. I like glance over his name. I'd rather play, like you said, Gary Woodland or Mac Hughes or something like that. I oversee those.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about where he's played fairly well, right? So he hasn't been very good around the greens, which is atypical for him thus far this year. But he finished, T17 at the Sony. The Sony Wildeye is a comp course for this tournament. We see a lot of crossover leaderboards between this and the Sony Open, T17. Pebble Beach, you don't have to be long off the tee. You need to have a certain level of accuracy. You need to be good on the greens. He finished inside the top 15 there. Farmers, he made the cut, didn't do anything. Amex, he made the cut, didn't do anything. And then last week at the Genesis, he missed the cut. So these longer POA courses, he hasn't played well, but you get him on a shorter track, requires you to be a little bit tricky. You get some coastal winds. All of a sudden, the best version of Seabez comes out. What I don't know is that best version can actually win on the PGA Tour, but maybe it's good enough to finish in the top 20.
Okay. You guys keep playing him. I'm not going to play him. If he wins, he wins. He burns me, just like you said with Patrick Reed. I would be pretty shocked if one of those two guys won in this range.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to see some sort of. I'm gonna be the person that's gonna be late on Seabez before I'm early like the rest of the guys.
Yeah, but that's fair. I mean, there are options to your point. I've joked with you multiple times, like I just can't play Brand Harmon. Like everything that you said is completely legitimate and makes total sense. I can't play Brian Harmon. It's the same reason you don't play Seabez. It's just like it's nothing. He's so vanilla to me. There's nothing there for me.
I feel like they're the same. I feel like they're such similar players too. Like they're great putters and they're great around the green, but
not going to hit the ball very far. It's just kind of they are what they are. But I think you can make an argument to your point in either direction. The other guy that I feel like's gained a lot of steam, but I just can't get there is Russell Knox. I feel like every week people are like, man, look, he's popping in the model. He's showing very well. And I think just statistically he shows up, but there's nothing there for me with Russell Knox. Maybe if it was 4 or 5 years ago when the best version of him was peaking, but I don't know. Like I said, it's Woodland, it's Seabez, it's Mito, and then God, I can't even believe I'm saying it. Maybe Wise, right? Just because of all of the points that you brought up.
But don't forget, Russell Knox is the best player through the bear trap in history. He's like literally has the lowest score to par through the bear trap, but he sucks on the other 15 holes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know, man.
I keep hearing that this week of people liking Russell Knox just because of how good he is through the bear trap, but the dude has like literally like four or five missed cuts the last 5 years. I mean, I'm not there with Russell Knox.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you talk about long-term skill set, it makes sense for Russell Knox to be a play. But okay, show me how he's finished here. He hasn't done very well. So there's not enough there for me with names like Woodland and Wise and even Mito Pereira and Brian Harmon. Like I can't get there with Knox versus the other guys.
Yeah, and he's completely opposite. I mean, this is a good transition into the upper sevens, like we're going to talk about Ryan Palmer, who is
exactly
who is like supposedly like the worst player through the bear trap, but the guy turns out finishes here. He's finished 17th, 4th, 37th before that. Like this guy plays good this course. Which, if you want to get into the top of the sevens, I really like Ryan Palmer this week. I think this is a good course for him. He besides the bear trap, if he can just get through the bear trap at 1 over or like even par, he's going to be in contention on Sunday because he plays the rest of the golf course so well. So top of the 7Ks, like you were saying, we got names like Ryan Palmer, Denny McCarthy, Lee Westwood making his USA debut. So, what are you thinking from the? Let's just talk about 7,500 to 7,900. What do you like there?
So I really like Brendan Todd and Michael Thompson at the bottom of that. I think if I was going to go sideways a little bit and try to get some ownership, you know, maybe KH Lee, just because, you know, when you talk about ball striking and kind of what he does well, he fits. Bermuda putting mitigates what he's the absolute worst at. I also like Palmer as well, too. Statistically, form wise, his course history, everything kind of lines up for him to be the play. It just depends on ownership for me with him. Anytime when I drop down below $8,000, I become like that ownership starts to just eat at me. And the last thing I want to do is go and play a guy who's going to be, you know, 15-20% owned below $8,000. That
Yeah.
to me is just a recipe for disaster. But if you're talking about 7,500, if I had to grab two names, it would probably be Thompson and Brendan Todd. Very similar skill sets in both guys. I bet 99% of people couldn't pick out the difference between the two of them, other than Michael Thompson now has a massive ZZ Top beard. But other than that, when he was, you know, clean shaven, Michael Thompson, him and Brendan Todd could have passed for siblings.
Yeah. I definitely agree with Michael Thompson. I do like him this week. He's been striking the crap out of the ball recently, and he just hasn't been able to putt for a couple weeks. But we saw him have a couple spike putting weeks also recently where he's been in contention. So I definitely like him. I'm also in on Chris Kirk here. I think this is a course where Chris Kirk fits him well. Just I like most of the guys we talked about. I like him at difficult golf courses where you got to keep the ball in play. He has good finishes here, also a couple top 20s and stuff like that. So I definitely like Chris Kirk and Ryan Palmer. I like him too. I don't know if you got, I don't know how much you know about him, but Nikolai Højgaard, he's Rasmus's twin brother.
Yep.
He's making his PGA Tour debut. This guy is, I think I was watching Pat Mayo's show. I think he has the perfect description of him. He's like European Siwoo Kim.
Yeah.
Like he like literally like either finishes DFL or first place. So if you like that volatility, which I do when it comes to golf tournaments, because you want a guy. I mean, if a guy's going to finish DFL, he is what it is, but like he has the upside to finish in first place. And he's won like 2 out of his last like 5 events so on the European tour. So um, I don't know how many people are going to be going to Højgaard this week. I don't know how many people, really know about their situation. It seems like him and his twin brother were competing, and it looks like he's becoming the better one out of the two. But his ownership's really low, so if you want to go overweight on him, you're not going to have him in many lineups if you're building 150. So I could definitely see going to Højgaard a little bit in the situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you drop down just a little bit farther below 75K, that's where I really think I'm going to end up using a lot of guys in my lineups. Glover, Straka, Rye, Sig, Higo, like all of those guys, I think I'm going to have sprinkled throughout my lineups. I really like every one of them a lot. I love Aaron Rye this week just from a course fit and what he does well. He's probably going to be the guy that I have the most owned. Number 2 in that stretch is probably Lucas Glover. The other guy that I've been doing a little bit of a deeper dive on is Sepp Straka. If you look at kind of what he's done lately since the turn of the year, he's made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts in a row. The Genesis, he finished top 15. Farmers, he finished top 20. He played in the Sony and made the cut there. So since the turn of the year, he's been playing much better golf. And I like Straka from the perspective of bombers have an advantage because they don't have to hit, driver off the tee. If you can contain what you're doing off the tee and limit that damage, right, avoiding the water. And Straka is the kind of guy who's got the distance where you can club down and hit iron or 3-wood off of, 70% of these par 4s, and he's not going to bring that trouble into play. So I like Straka there. No one's going to own him. And I think if you look at what he does and what the course presents, I think you could find a guy that could be kind of a hidden gem stuffed in there between Glover and Rye.
Yeah, I see. Looking at your model, he comes in 8th overall in your model. Lucas Glover comes in 2nd overall in your model. I like Straka more than Glover this week, just because I think he's playing a little bit better. Glover, he's been really bad like the last few times out. Like nothing to draw positives about. And I have a soft spot for Lucas Glover. This guy has been in a lot of my big winning lineups. So, Yeah, I go to Straka in that situation if you're comparing the two. But my favorite player is going to be Higo. I think I think he's a really, really good player. I think he's very underrated. The guy's already won on the PGA Tour, albeit it was, kind of a shitty tournament in the
Very
Palmetto.
weird event, but a
Yeah,
Fazio designed course with a lot of
yeah,
water.
yeah, exactly. So in a situation where driving's key, you got to keep the ball out of the water. I think he goes sets up for this course really well. He played really well. I think he was only at the Waste Management a few weeks ago on Bermuda greens. He was in the top 10. So I definitely like Higo in this situation. And then one other name I'm going to throw out to you, and I just lost it, was who was I looking at? Hold on one second. Hudson Swafford. Sorry, I was like,
Yeah,
where did Swaff Daddy go? I like Swafford. I think this. I mean, he played so well at American Express a few weeks ago. He won the tournament. I think this is a pretty comparable kind of course, maybe to the Stadium course, as the PGA National. So I definitely like Swaff Daddy. I like Higo. I think both set up as good plays in the low 7K range, and they're both also coming in pretty low ownership. Like you said, you like Aaron Rye, and so does everyone else. It seems like because he is coming in pretty chalky. So I'm going to fade Aaron Rye in the situation and go to Higo and Swafford.
yeah. I mean, the other guy that's got probably the best course history out of this range, that was maybe Brendan Steele. Brendan Steele's, I think he's got a couple of top 10 finishes the last time he's played here. So
He's
I
been
could
so
see.
bad, man.
I know it's the same issue with Duffner, right? Like when we drop down into 6Ks, it's like statistically, course history wise, everything rates out really well, but they've just been so friggin' bad here this year. And Brendan Steele, I don't know what's up with that guy. Like he's just terrible. And he had like places where he would just consistently show up every year, and he's just been dog shit. I mean,
Yeah.
absolute, just terrible steaming pile.
He's one of those guys I need to see it from. I think I always translate Brendan Steele to more of like a West Coast or Hawaii kind of guy.
Yeah, the
So
Fortinet or whatever the hell that's where he just plays. He just shows up
yeah,
every single year.
even though I mean you're right, these last 2 years he has he had a third place here last year, a fourth place the year before. So definitely has good history here, but he's coming in off of I think 4 or 5 straight missed cuts. Can't hit the ball right now. I need to see it from him before I hop back on any steal money.
Dropping down the last three names I want to throw at you just because they're at the bottom of this range, but they're guys that they have some name value. Streelman, Willett, and Stenson, right? Like Willett, you think
You
difficult,
say
windy.
Stenson or Svensson?
Stenson. I like
Okay. I like
Svensson.
I like Svensson
I
more
like
than
Adam
Stenson.
Svensson, but I'm asking you specifically about Henrik Stenson. So Streelman, Willett, and Stenson. Any of those three guys from a name value perspective, any of them find their way into lineups for you this week?
I think a little bit I could get on board with Danny Willett. Definitely out on Stenson. I like Adam Svensson right above him a little bit more than
Everybody
Henry.
likes Adam Svensson
Yeah,
this week.
I like Svensson. And Streelman I always only usually play in California, so I really don't play him anywhere besides California. Sometimes I play him with the Travelers just because he has good history there. But out of those three, I would power rank it. Willett, who's probably going to make some of my lineups. He was actually I had his name clicked on my betting card, but I laid off of it because I don't think he's going to really win this week. But I could see him grinding out a cut. We've seen it when conditions get tough. Him, when a course gets tough, the guy won the Masters in a tough conditions kind of setup. So in a setup like this, I could see Willett, coming through with a cut made, maybe even a top like 20 finish or something like that. He's been playing all right overseas, so
He
we'll
does
see
have a
how.
win here in the last 6 months too.
Yeah, he does. What was that, like the Dunhill or something like that? He
Yep, he
won.
won the
Yeah,
Dunhill.
yeah. I think he beat out like Lowry and a couple other guys. So definitely like Willett more than the other two guys that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean it. The only thing that scares me is if you're going to try and jam two guys from like the high nines and above 10K, that you're going to have to play quite a bit in this range and maybe even drop down into the 6K, which is obviously the next range. So you've got to find some opportunities here, and you definitely don't want to venture too far down where you're having to play two guys below $7,000 because it gets really, really sparse really, really quick. Like it falls off a cliff after $7,000.
Yeah. Okay.
So dropping down into the dumpster below $7,000, there's three names I really like, and there's a couple names that I want to get your opinion on. I love Neesmith, I love Hickok, I love Smotherman. Those three guys are probably the three names that me and everybody else likes because statistically they rate out really well. The other guys that I want to throw at you just for consideration and just get your take on them. One, I don't know why, dude. I don't know why I keep playing David Lipsky. Like he's just like I feel like he's a way better player than the way that he has been playing, but he's been trash. But Lipsky's one. Ryan Armour, my boy, the one that played in the Pro-Am with us at the Wells Fargo a few years ago. And then the last name that I'm going to throw out you, and again, it's just because he was a name 3 or 4 weeks ago, was your boy Paul Barjon. Like Barjon, Armour, and Lipsky. Like no one's going to own any of those three guys. Do any three of them make sense to you?
No, not really. I could see the Barjon love just because I said it before. He's not really. I don't think he's. I think he's better than a 6,300 price golfer. So I could see the Barjon love there, but I'm not really on him. My favorite play, like without a doubt, in this range is Austin Smotherman. The guy I mean, he's good. Like he's gonna be like my Cam Young of last week. Like I think he's gonna be in contention this week. He's on my betting card. He's coming in off of two good finishes. His last two times out, an 11th and a 33rd. He's never played here, but still, I think he has the pedigree and the game to be in contention. So my sleeper for this week is Austin Smotherman. Just like last week, my sleeper was Cam Young. So I definitely like him this week. Who are the first two names? Oh, Matthew Neesmith and what was the other name you said? Kramer Hickok. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I like Hickok and Neesmith both.
Okay, yeah, I don't mind them. I know they're really high on your models. What has Neesmith been doing? He has a 30. Okay, so he has good course history here.
Made the cut twice.
Yeah, made the cut twice, and then yeah, sure, why not? If I was going to power rank those, I'd probably be Smotherman, Neesmith, and then Hickok. I'm not really a Hickok kind of guy, and to be crazy enough, if I'm going to be in that range, the guy's been playing really well recently. It hasn't been in America, it's been overseas, but Patrick Harrington, man, this guy is like coming along on the European tour.
Old Patty Harrington.
I mean, listen to these finishes. His last 5 events on the European tour, he's had a 27th, a 9th, a 20th, an 8th, a 12th. Like this guy is consistently finishing in the top 20. So maybe he found something at a course where you don't have to be that long, a course where you just have to grind it out. This guy is a multiple major champion winner. He's going to make his way into a few of my lineups this week.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get there with Harrington. I think I have some kind of prejudice against people over the age of 50. I can't get there. But
dude, he finished 4th at the PGA Championship last year.
Yeah, I know. That's the same tournament that Phil won. So again,
there you go. A tough course for over 50-year-olds. Why not? Let's fire him up.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like him. I guess if you're telling me, I would prefer him at DFS over betting him. I mean, he's missed four cuts in a row at this course. So I know that his long-term history, I think he's actually won here before.
Yeah,
like 25 years ago when he was a normal human being, but. I don't know. I can't get there. The other guy of interest is right around him would be Johnny question marks, John Huh. He's got a couple top 25 finishes. He's made 3 out of 5 cuts here at the Honda. We haven't seen him for a while since the Amex. But he's one of those guys when you talk about putting the ball in the fairway, he's I think right around the top 20 in terms of fairways gained. His skill set translates very, very well here. And then the other guy that's at least worth mentioning when you talk about ball striking, you talk about good off the tee, is Doug Gim. I mean, people were betting Doug Gim at, I don't know, a third of the odds last week that he's at this week. Mm-hmm. Doug Gim's at $6,800. He's a much better player than a lot of the guys down in this range, especially the guys that he's around. And I mean, he's a guy who just missed a cut after making 3 in a row. Again, if you're looking for made cut equity, and again, I recognize that he's missed 2 cuts at this tournament, but he's playing much better this year than he has previously. And then again, skill set, right? Guy who can put the ball in the fairway, guy that's a really good ball striker. Gim seems like a good option to me at $6,800.
Man, he burned me so hard last week. I had a
He
lot of
burned
him.
everybody
Yeah.
last week.
I bet him last
Everyone.
week. He was in a lot of my lineups. He just burned so many of my lineups. I have a sour taste in my mouth because of Doug Gim. But that's the number one thing in DFS. If you have a sour taste in your mouth from one week, hop right back on him because everyone else has that sour taste from last week. So yeah, I definitely like him. I'm going to throw a few more names out here that I like. Hayden Buckley at 6,600. He's a new guy. He played this event a couple years ago when he was, I think, an amateur maybe. But I like his pedigree for this for the PGA Tour. So I definitely like some Hayden Buckley. Um, what was I saying? Nick Watney. He has good course history here. A bunch of made cuts, four made cuts. Definitely I could definitely sprinkle some Nick Watney on some of my lineups. And Duff Daddy. I mean, like he's on my betting card. He's been playing like crap, but this guy's played 13 times at this course and he's made the cut 13 times. So he has something at this course. 13 of 13 made cuts. At 60, I believe he's at 6,300. At 6,300. I mean, if you're just asking somebody to make a cut, I think he's pretty safe just because of his history at this course. So I don't think he's going to win. I bet him at, I think, 350 to 1 or something like that. But if you're for DFS purposes, I'm going to roll with him in some lineups this week.
What about major winner? Has only missed one cut in his last 5 renditions at this tournament. Jimmy Walker. Jimmy Walker, $6,500. If you're going to play Padre Harrington, who's missed the cut 5 straight times here, why not Jimmy Walker, who's made 4 out of 5 cuts and made 2 out of his last 3 cuts on the PGA Tour?
Nah, I'm out on Jimmy Walker. He's a douchebag. I don't like him at all.
He is a douchebag, but
in real life he's a douchebag. No, I don't like him at all. So I never really play him. But at 6,500, I actually like Brandon Hagee. He finished second here last year to Matt Jones and the 21st the year before. He's super long off the tee. He always gains strokes off the tee. So in a course where you need to gain strokes off the tee, I think he fits this course pretty well.
Yeah, Hagee's a guy I think a lot of people are circling around in this $6,000 range because of the course history. You know, we talked about it a little bit with Wolf. When guys who are that long off the tee can club down and hit less than driver, it takes away some of those things, but they can still compete with a lot of the shorter hitters and have, shorter approaches than the 175 to 200 that most of these guys are going to have into these greens. So I see the love behind Hagee when you look at the statistics. The other guys around him, are there's not a lot of options down here. And again, we're probably spending way too much time talking about guys who are absolutely terrible and you're just hoping make the cut. But I think Walker and Hagee at the 6,500 marker, they're not bad options if you need to dip down that low. I see Watney. I get the course history. He's made four cuts in a row here. Hasn't been playing great. Right below him is another guy who has good course history here, and that's Roger Sloan. So there's options, but dude, they're all darts. And, I think if you can avoid, grabbing more than one of these guys and putting them in your lineup, you're going to be way better positioned than if you have to dip down and grab 2 or 3 guys and hope that they make the cut.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you can avoid this range, but if you're going to jam in the guys at the top, you have to go down to this range. Any thoughts on Chase Koepka?
He made the cut last year. I mean, he's on the Brooks Koepka exemption. So
and he's probably going to be, staying at Brooks's house this week, and getting to hang out with his brother and his sister-in-law.
My assumption is he just lives at Brooks's house anyways, right? Like, because if you're
know.
If you're Brooks Koepka's little brother and the option is live with my parents while I try to make the tour or go stay at Brooks's house, I think I'm going to stay at Brooks's house.
I guess. Sahith Theegala is living with his parents in Southern California and making the tour.
Dude, I feel like that's a full cultural thing, and that's not a knock at all. I'm just saying I feel like that's a full Indian culture thing.
Definitely an Indian culture thing. When I heard that he still lives at his parents' house and he drives to these events from in California from his parents' house, 100% an Indian thing. But
do you think Anirban Lahiri still lives with his parents?
Maybe, I don't know. He's in the field.
He's down here. That's why I mentioned him.
Chase Koepka, I mean, he's not any good, but he did finish 30th here last year at 6,300. I'd rather go to Duffner or somebody like that, but I don't know. If you feel like the mood is right for Chase, it's just a dart. I mean, if you want to sprinkle him in one lineup, go for it.
All right, so here's the question of the day. You have to play a guy at the min 6,000.
Oh boy.
You've got Kozon, no idea, Max McGreevy, Joshua Creel, Eric Compton, Alan Morin, who I think is like a driving range pro, Jim Hard K Knaus, your boy Grayson Trump Murray, and Mike Gligic. Who do you take?
I guess Grayson Murray, just because
I can't believe you took Grayson Murray.
he has two made cuts here out of the last 5 years. I guess he's the only one has made a cut in this range.
What about Jim Hard K Knaus?
I don't even know.
We saw him contend like 6 months ago.
Who is Jim Knaus? I don't even know who that is.
I swear to you, Knaus contended here. I'm going to find it now because you're bringing it up.
He finished 78th here, one cut made 3 years ago.
Knaus, I'm pulling it up. He contended, I want to say it was at the Fortinet. He fell apart on Sunday late, but he was, I think, the 54-hole leader going into Sunday.
Nah, forget it. I'm not playing Knaus.
No Knaus. All right, let's talk about bets for the week. We've beat DFS to death.
All right, man. Let's get the 3 in a row this week. One of us, let's hit a winner.
All right. So for me, it's Louis, it's Horschel, Wolf, Mito, Wise, and Woodland, right? So a couple of those guys are just on-brand guys for me with Mito and Woodland. Wise, I feel like I'm buying a bit of the dip because his number is back where it should be. So I like those. And then there's some value plays for me, like Glover and Rye and Swafford. Like those are just value plays for me. Those guys are much better players than the odds that you're getting above, 90 and 100 to 1. And then again, just super deep stabs at Willett at Stenson, hoping that either one of those guys can find the major form that they had at one point in time. Your card, Rick, for the week. Going to shoot the turkey. 3 in a row.
Like Kobe says, going for that 3-peat this week. I'm gonna roll with Brooks at 20 to 1. I think this is a situation where we've seen him, almost win here before. I think he's in a good spot to come home and sleep in his own bed and play a tough golf course. And at tough golf course, at major S golf courses, I will roll with Brooks. Despite how unmotivated he may seem to be, he's still the best player in this field. I will roll with Brooks at 20 to 1, Usti at 22 to 1, Norin at 35 to 1, your boy Brian Herman at 40 to 1.
Frodo Baggins.
Frodo Baggins. Everyone's guy that we hate on the show for some reason, but yet we both bet him. Aaron Wise, 50 to 1. Chris Kirk at 70 to 1, and then my bombs are going to be Michael Thompson at 80, Garrick Higo at 100, Austin Smotherman at 150, Patty Harrington at 175, Brandon Hagee at 225, and Duff Daddy at 350.
Duffner, 350 to 1. If my book offered a top 40, I think I might bet Duffner, but I think that's about it for me with Duff Daddy this week.
Top 20, bro. You'll get a good number on him top 20.
Yeah, dude, top 20. I want to say he was like 35 to 1 top 20, which is crazy.
That's the same as winning an outright bet.
I know. I do have some top 5s on guys like that.
You know what? I'm going to add that to my card. Jason Duffner, top 20 this week. You heard it here.
Well, dude, so I didn't bet Higo, but I did outright, but I did take a top 5 on him at like 20 to 1. I think that's a good bet. Like you, there's just so much upside there. And the same thing with Thompson. I took Thompson at top 5 at 16, 18 to 1. I like those odds a little bit better. That's the only reason why I cashed it all last week, because I had Neiman, at 19, 20 to 1 for a top 5.
Yeah, I like Michael Thompson this week. Let's hope one of these bets on our card hits.
Usti or Wise, those are the two guys that we have.
Are those the two guys that we're sharing this week?
We both share Usti and Wise, a guy who never wins and a guy that everybody always plays and never wins.
Well, you know what? Usti's going to win this week. I'm using him in one and done. Let's go, Louis Oosthuizen.
You know what? I hate Louis Oosthuizen, but he is on my card, and if he wins, I will be very, very happy.
Louis Oosthuizen, the guy is so nice.
Dude, because the thing for me is, ever since the U.S. Open, when he laid up, he had to go for it at Torrey to make it at all possible, and he laid up. That was it for me. I was done. I was like, you know what, Louis, you just are happy to finish top 5 in majors. You don't care. You're going to make your millions of dollars, and that's totally cool. You're just not my brand. I can't do it.
Well, I think it's time for him to win one. So we'll see. You guys, if you guys are tuning in, like you said, for the first time, I hope you follow our bets. I hope we put some money into your accounts with a win this week. I really appreciate all the love and support. We started this show last year at the Open Championship, and we're on our way to 500 subscribers now. So if you liked our content, please, please, please like us. Follow Nickel City Mafia on YouTube. Follow me and Tony on Twitter. We're really trying to get to 500 subscribers. Hopefully by the Masters, that'd be awesome. And then we'll see how it goes this week.
Yep, absolutely. We've to your point, Rick, this is not our day job. We have day jobs. That's the whole Jags things. We're just another guy doing this. We love it. We hope that we're producing good content. We've been hitting winners. We've been giving good advice. So hopefully those of you that tuned in tonight and continue to tune in future episodes, reach out to us. We love the comments and the emails and all of the feedback that we get on social media. So good luck this week. Rick, I'll be rooting for you to win 3 in a row, and I'm hoping that I'm tailing you on the right guys this week, and we both can cash a big ticket.
Yeah. And also a big shout out to Rick Gaiman. He retweeted our promotion for the show today. A lot of you guys that watch the show, I'm sure, are fans of Rick. He's a wonderful guy, man. He's one of the nicest guys I know. Play golf with him every time I get a chance to meet up with him. So big shout out, Rick. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, producer Mike, once again for coming in the 11th hour, and to you, Rick, and for everybody watching. Good luck this week.
Yep. Take it easy.